Declan. Declan, to whom it may concern, welcome to my presentation. Today I'm going to be talking about the ethical situation, ethical dilemma of the death penalty. So in today's presentation, I'll just be talking about the origins of the death penalty, arguments for and against the death penalty, and the different ethical frameworks that are associated with capital punishment, and then finish off with a conclusion. The ethical dilemma of the death penalty is a global issue as it affects the lives of members of our society. Amnesty International recorded at least 2,531 death sentences in 54 countries in 2018. They also recorded at least 690 executions that took place in 20 countries last year. However, these statistics are not completely accurate or trustworthy due to the political regimes in China, North Korea. It is difficult to know just how many executions have taken place. And we can see here crimes that are punishable by death. You can see that include treason, espionage, murder, large-scale drug trafficking, or attempted murder of witness. Although 106 countries have completely abolished capital punishment, including Australia. See, the last state was WA, who abolished it in 1984. It's hard to imagine our justice system with the death penalty, as the most severe punishment is being incarcerated for life. And also we can see here in New South Wales it was abolished in 1955, and Victoria had the most has the most people who got the death penalty in all of Australia from those years leading up to abolishment. So now we'll look at some arguments for the death penalty and look at how ethical frameworks tie into these arguments for. So, deterrence, which is can come under Kantism, and so the death penalty can help reduce the crime rate as it acts as a deterrence to future criminals. So utilitarianism, which is a consequentialist approach. Utilitarianism is a consequentialist approach that is which individuals make moral decisions based on a consequence or an outcome, usually resulting in the utmost pleasure and happiness for the greater society. So we see here utilitarianism is in favour of capital punishment. It is seen as the most beneficial way to make society a happy place for a majority. And another reason why utilitarians may think it's for the death penalty is the government saves money, which leads because of less funding in prisons. And that money can be used elsewhere, example education, which therefore results in the greater happiness, increased happiness for the greater. Now we can have a look at Kant and deontology and the death penalty. So Kant is the opposite. Immanuel Kant was a German philosopher who believed that we make moral decisions based on duty and not a specific motive. We did it out of goodwill. So Kant states that we can all use our reason and autonomy to discover the universe's moral laws, which is like the goodwill. It's a non-consequentialist approach. And as I mentioned, the right motive is not pleasure or happiness, but a duty. So Kant's view on capital punishment is Kant agrees with capital punishment, however, only in the scenario of murder. And then he talks about retribution is the only way. So a murderer should be murdered, otherwise their life is more valuable than the victim's. Now we can have a look at some arguments against. Here we see the divine and command theory, which is largely based off God and the Bible and the Quran and all these other religious things. We see in Exodus, "Thou shalt not kill." That's in a passage. Also, the passage in Genesis. God created man in his image. Every human should be treated with dignity. And then we can also look at the side of human rights and how every human has a right to live. We can look at the value of life argument and seen as a perspective from human rights, that every human has a right to live. But that goes for two parts of the argument. It's for and against. So with it for is that every human has a right to live. Why? So say if an individual is sentenced to capital punishment by the death penalty for murder, that argument can go for them. Every human right has a right to live, and it can also be for against, saying every human has a right to live. Wrongful convictions is another reason against. According to proceedings of the National Academy of Science, 4.1% of Americans were sentenced to death are later proven innocent, which is an alarming number of statistics. Some individuals state that death is not enough for retribution. It does not allow for an individual to change and reform. And we can see that this example of Andrew Chan and Ryan Sukumaran, the two Australian guys who were incarcerated and served the death penalty in Bali, part of the Bali Nine, for smuggling heroin into Australia. During their time in prison, they actually changed and they reformed themselves. One of them did a lot of social work, one of them did a lot of priest work, and they really got their lives back on track, but they were still sentenced to the death penalty, and not long ago were actually executed. So it doesn't give individuals a chance to change and reform their ways. And here we finish off with the conclusion. So the policy of capital punishment does not allow for a middle ground, as the two different options are so definitive within each other. The theories we looked at were Kant, utilitarianism, divine command, and also human rights. As we saw with Immanuel Kant, utilitarianism are for the death penalty, the divine and command against it, and human rights can go one or two ways. And lastly, I'll start off with my view. I believe that there is no way of proving how effective it is as a deterrence. So you can't predict how if the capital, there's no stats to back up how many crimes are reduced because of the death penalty. I believe the death penalty is, for someone who has murdered someone, I believe that the death penalty is an easy way out, and they should not receive the death penalty. They should have to live the rest of their lives incarcerated. I think if anyone wants to get the death penalty, it would be for murderer. And we look at eye for an eye. That's also in the Bible. We look at we can see the divine and command theory with the eye for an eye. But all in all, I think that especially crimes like drug trafficking, crimes that don't harm anyone else, should definitely not be punished for capital punishment. And yeah, that's just I think it should be abolished in most countries, and I think it's sort of heading towards that way in the US. I'm not too sure about countries like Iran, North Korea, all that sort of stuff. The statistics there are quite numerous. And that's it. Reference list and done. Thank you.